I stole a volcano on a Tuesday, which was already root of the universe because Tuesdays are for forgetting passwords and eating cereal for dinner, not for grand larceny against geography. To be clear, I did not intend to steal a volcano. I was just trying to return a library book. This is an important piece of context that no one ever seems to listen to during the court proceedings. The book was titled So You've Found Yourself in Possession of a Mildly Cursed Artifact. I borrowed it 3 weeks earlier after a librarian with glowing eyes whispered to me, "Bring it back before it finishes reading ***, a reasonable request," I thought. I'm very responsible when it comes to ominous warnings from mystical librarians. Unfortunately, when I walked up to the library, the building was gone. Not closed for renovations, gone. In its place sat a penguin in a full business suit, sipping a coffee and standing next to a sign that read, "Library temporarily relocated." Sorry for the apocalypse. Where did it go? I asked the penguin. He checked his watch. A very fancy gold one, depends. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, physically, though. The volcano, and that's how this all started. The volcano was not where a volcano usually goes. It was parked behind a donut shop, smoking gently, almost like it was embarrassed to be there. A long line of tourists were taking selfies with it, and a goat wearing a trench coat was selling souvenir lava rocks. I approached it carefully. "Excuse me," I said, feeling a bit ridiculous talking to a geological formation. "Are you borrowed?" the volcano rumbled. A voice echoed directly into my skull, not through my ears. It said, "I am overdue." "Oh," I said, feeling a strange sense of kinship. Same. Just then, the cursed book in my backpack began screaming. It was a high-pitched literary shriek. That's when the ocean texted me. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was an unknown contact. The message read, "Hey, quick question. Why is my volcano missing?" I stared at the screen, bewildered. I typed back, "First of all, how did you get my number?" The reply was instant. Second of all, that's not important. Before I could even think of a response, the ground shook violently. The volcano sprouted legs. Huge, molten, stompy legs. It looked like it was ready to go for a run. "I don't like this," I said aloud to nobody in particular. The volcano then picked me up, surprisingly gently, and placed me on its shoulder like a confused emotional support human. The voice in my head rumbled again. "You took responsibility. Now we travel." "Well," I yelled, holding on for dear life. "Adventure." And with that, we began walking directly into the sky. Gravity seemed to quit on us about halfway up. It even sent a little puff of smoke that looked like an apology note before disappearing entirely. We landed in a desert made entirely of forks. Thousands upon thousands of them. There were fork dunes, fork storms, and little forks sticking upright like metallic grass. A man wearing a hat made of spoons walked up to us. "Welcome to Cutlery Flats," he said with a completely straight face. "No running." "No soup," the volcano nodded respectfully, as if this was a perfectly normal greeting. "This place owes me money," the volcano muttered into my skull. Suddenly, the cursed book leapt out of my bag, sprouted little arms, and slapped the spoon hat man right across the face. "You're late," the book yelled. "The prophecy has carbs now in the distance." Fork sirens began to wail. We had to run. Or rather, the volcano jogged politely while I screamed and held onto its rocky eyebrow ridge. Behind us, the forks began marching in perfect formation. "You didn't mention sentient silverware?" I yelled over the clanging. "It was implied," the volcano replied calmly. "We escaped through a door that appeared out of nowhere labeled, 'Do not enter, this means you.' We fell sideways through it and landed in a tropical jungle where everything was yelling legal advice. The trees shouted, 'Get a lawyer!' The colorful birds screamed, 'You have rights!' A jaguar in a tie handed me a pamphlet. 'Sign here,' it said, its voice smooth and persuasive. "For what?" I asked, suspicious. "Don't worry about it. I did not sign." This turned out to be a mistake. The jungle floor split open and a massive courtroom rose from the earth. The judge was a giraffe in a powdered wig, its long neck allowing it to peer down at everyone. Order, the giraffe boomed, slamming a gavel made of bread, which sent crumbs everywhere. Who stole the volcano? Everyone pointed at me. Even the volcano. IT was a group project, it offered, trying to defend itself. Just then, the ocean burst through the ceiling, flooding the courtroom up to everyone's knees with salty water. A huge, watery face formed in the deluge. "Excuse me," the ocean boomed. "That is mine. I'm pretty sure volcanoes are public domain," the giraffe judge countered, looking down its long nose. "Don't make me wavy," the ocean replied, its voice dangerously low. Things escalated quickly after that. The cursed book began chanting in some ancient, forgotten language. The angry forks from Cutlery Flats burst in, still marching. And then the penguin librarian parachuted down from the hole in the ceiling, screaming, "I told you to return IT quietly." The courtroom collapsed, and we found ourselves strapped into a roller coaster. "No time," said a raccoon wearing a safety vest, pulling down my shoulder harness. "Regulations." The coaster launched us through different dimensions. We flew past a universe where everyone was a piece of furniture. A universe where gravity was optional but incredibly judgmental. And then we passed through a universe where I saw another version of myself, but with much better posture. Hey, that version of me yelled as we flew by. "Drink water." Finally, the ride slammed to a halt, and we were back in my kitchen. Everything was on fire. Not burning, just emotionally on fire. The flames were flickering sadly, as if they were having a bad day. The volcano was now sitting on my couch, which was miraculously not crushed. This was fun, it said into my head. "I feel seen." The ocean sloshed through the doorframe, dripping politely onto the floor. So the ocean said, much calmer now, "Can I have it back?" The volcano looked at me. I looked at the cursed book, which had stopped screaming and was now sipping a tiny cup of tea. "I think," I said slowly, choosing my words carefully, "the volcano doesn't want to be owned." There was a moment of silence. The giraffe judge poked his head through my kitchen window. "That's legally beautiful," he said, tearing up a little. The ocean sighed, a sound like waves receding from the shore fine. "But it has to visit. I will," the volcano promised. "On weekends." Then the volcano shrank down to the size of a happy rock, waved one of its little leg stumps, and hopped into the puddle of ocean on my floor, which then receded out the door. Everything stopped shaking. The emotional fire in my kitchen went out. The cursed book sighed contentedly and turned back into a normal, non-sentient book. The penguin librarian dusted himself off. "Next time," he said, adjusting his tie, used the drop box. That night, I sat on my couch, eating cereal for dinner and watching the news. The headline read, "Local person returns volcano, causes minimal damage to reality." My phone buzzed. It was the ocean. "Thanks, BTW." I smiled and texted back, "No problem." Another message came through immediately. "You free Thursday?" I looked over at the cursed book on my coffee table. I swear it winked at me as I sighed. "Absolutely not," I said out loud. My phone buzzed again. "Cool, see you then." And that is how I learned that once you steal a volcano accidentally, or not, adventure never asks for permission again. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this little trip through reality, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more adventures. See you next time.